Hi, this is Mark Staples with the Utah Avalanche Center. We're into April. We're dealing with a few different avalanche problems. The main take-home point is that avalanche conditions can change as quickly as the weather. We know how quickly that changes. It can be nearly 80 degrees one day and down in bitter cold and snowing the next. The avalanches we're going to worry about typically involve new snow that falls from the sky, if that snow gets blown around by the wind, and then what we mostly deal with are wet avalanches. Hopefully this spring we continue to get snow. We have a nice cool wet spring. If that's the case, we'll deal with avalanches in the new snow. There are two things to watch for. One is how it bonds to the crust that it typically lands on, or whatever the old snow surface is. Until it bonds to that, we typically see loose snow avalanches in the new snow. They're typically not that big of a deal, fairly harmless unless you're in very steep terrain. The second thing is when we get an upside down storm. And that is when the storm starts out cold and we end up with a lot of light, low density snow here. And as the storm progresses, temperatures warm and the snow gets denser. That puts stronger snow on top of weaker snow, and then we can get soft slab avalanches within the new snow. Those will also stabilize in about 24 to 48 hours. When we're doing with slabs of wind-drifted snow, wind-blown snow, wind slabs, everything associated with the wind deposits snow on the lee side of ridges and gullies and other terrain features, builds up a cohesive slab on top of the new snow, and for the first 48 to 24 hours, after the wind stops transporting that snow, this new snow is the weak layer, and the slab on top is the avalanche. So you just want to look for signs of that drifted snow and steer clear of it until it's had a few days to stabilize. Let's talk wet avalanches for a minute. One, when we get new snow in any spring storm, like I mentioned earlier, we can get avalanches with the new snow, but then the first time the sun comes out and temperatures get really warm, we can see wet avalanches when that new snow gets wet. Typically has a nice crust on which those can slide. Those are mostly loose, wet avalanches. You'll see signs of those because the day gets hotter, the snow gets wet, you'll see snowballs rolling downhill, and Mother Nature will be letting you know those are going to happen. After we go through several melt-freeze cycles in which the new snow warms up, gets wet during the day, and ideally refreezes at night, conditions can get quite good and we can develop corn snow. A red flag is when we have a prolonged, very warm period like we just went through, where we have very hot, warm days. And then the main red flag to look out for is when we don't refreeze overnight. One thing that it can help it refreeze is having clear, cold skies. So kind of a warm, cloudy night can actually keep the snow a lot warmer. So red flag, when we don't get a refreeze overnight, you'll know that in the morning if you're out and the snow is not frozen or barely frozen at all. What starts happening and where we'll get bigger avalanches, bigger wet avalanches, is when we get water, liquid water, moving down through the snowpack. The heat and the sunshine are applied to the snowpack up here. It melts the snow, liquid water starts moving down. Because there are layers in the snowpack, that liquid water can accumulate in places, and wherever that happens determines how deep the avalanches are. Occasionally, that liquid water can move all the way down until it reaches an old layer of depth hoar or facets near the ground. And when that happens, we can get big, destructive, wet slab avalanches. We've seen just a couple in the Abajo, LaSalle, and Skyline area mountains in central and southern Utah. Up here in northern Utah, these facets have gained a lot of strength. I don't see that happening, but heads up if we have a very long, prolonged period of heat and lack of refreezing overnight, and that water starts moving through the snowpack. Ideally, we just have a nice gradual transition into spring where the weather just gets a little bit warmer, the snowpack has time to refreeze and adjust, and the snowpack what happens is it develops its plumbing. That liquid water develops drainage channels, or almost like pipes, that it can flow through. Once those form, the water has a place to go. It gets harder to get an avalanche. Even better, is when that liquid water moves to the snowpack and then it refreezes overnight. It's like having rebar in the snowpack and it's frozen solid. So stay tuned. We'll keep putting out a few more avalanche forecasts. We'll do a few more updates for the rest of April. Otherwise, continue to send us observations. We will post those. If you see anything notable, please take a photo of it or a video of it, send it to us, share it on social media, tag us, and we'll help to get that out to everyone else so we can know if there is anything unusual going on. Otherwise, have a great spring. Let's hope we get a lot more snow.